Welcome to Hello Grow, the #1 growth podcast
in the world.
Helping entrepreneurs and salespeople grow their bank accounts, their relationships, and their health.
And become the better versions of themselves.
The best version of themselves.
Let's go.
Today I'm introducing Carlos Souza, and it's fitting. He's the exact archetype of who should be on this podcast. Salesperson and entrepreneur. You've started a business, you're a partner in our current business, and you took our sales from one person to a team of salespeople and created a scalable, repeatable process. So in the interview today, I want to find out a lot about you personally. So we're going to talk about your story, where you came from, what makes you tick, and then I'm going to pivot it to how you would go about, and I think this part, everyone's going to love to hear your incredible story of how you were raised and how you got here. And I think in addition, they're going to love to hear how you came into the organization and scaled up our sales and created a repeatable process, and now you're able to do that for other companies. So we're going to talk about the playbook and how you would go about doing this. So we'll have two sections of this. Let's start off with you. Give us your life story in 60 seconds.
Okay. By the way, that's very nice of you to say all those things. So I was born and raised in Brazil. Two amazing parents that gave me everything I needed, especially the values that I needed. When I was about 14, 15, I remember taking this sales course, and then I actually just took the course because I wanted a job, and then I wanted to use that as an excuse to get a job at this place that I wanted. So I went up to the guy and said, "Hey, I'm taking this course and I'd love to practice at your store. Can I work for you?" And I became just like a cashier at a restaurant. Did some door-to-door when I was a teenager, and then went on a service mission for my church when I was 19. I went to England, came back from England. Before I went on my mission, I had been dating Roberta, who's the love of my life. We started dating when she was 16, and I was 17 at the time, and we've been together for now 8 years, and came back from England, got married 6 months after that, came to the US for school, and did a bunch of things when I was in school, but my major was accounting, and then I got, after school, started working for Aspen. I know that went over 60 seconds a little bit, but that's just a little bit about my story.
You came into Aspen as a frontline worker and worked yourself all the way up to really the right-hand man of the president of the company, who, and you're over all growth and all revenue, starting from an individual contributor on the front lines. It's impressive. I want to talk to you a little bit about your door-to-door experience in Brazil. I know from our conversations you've always been selling, and when you moved into a sales position, no one that you grew up with was surprised. So tell us a little bit about your sales experience as a teenager.
I think I was always selling stuff, Growing up, I never clicked. Things never connected, but now looking back, I think, I heard this once, that you can connect things looking forward only when you look back. And now when I look back, I've realized that I've been doing sales my whole life. So whenever I had a phone, for example, I would try to sell it and then make some money and then get, upgrade to a better phone. I was just always grinding and trying to make money somehow. I was always selling something. My door-to-door experience was not nothing fancy. So my grandpa was an entrepreneur, and he had this company that I think he imported, like Febreze, like air freshener. So he used to import some stuff from China, I think, or he would he was, I don't know, he was making them. I don't know the exact story, but I would buy from him for a very cheap price and just start knocking. And I started knocking on people's doors and
so an air freshener, door to door.
And then
What was the pitch?
no pitch. I was just like,
your house doesn't smell good. And
can I come and show you? And then we'd spray at people's homes, and then they would say, okay, sure, yeah. And then I would make crazy deals because I didn't really have a price. I would just go around offering for what I could get because I paid super cheap. So I remember this once I sold this air freshener for a jersey, for a soccer jersey, but most of the time I sold for money. Then I hired a friend of mine to come and sell with me, and then we made a little bit of money for a few months.
So you've always been selling, always been recruiting. That's been a big part of your involvement at Aspen. I was having a conversation recently talking about this entrepreneurial journey of first, when you start a company, you wear every hat. So you're the employee to yourself. And to get from employee to manager, which is the next step, you have to be able to sell and you have to be able to recruit. And then once you can recruit, you also have to be able to do operations so that your recruits know how to function after you recruit them. Then you become a manager. And then to go from manager to leader, you have to sell and you have to recruit. And then you also have to have some strategy. And then to go from a leader to an investor, you again have to recruit. So this has been typical for you. This has been the story of your life up to this point. You've been selling, you've been recruiting, you've been building processes, going through that entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, I heard this the other day that if you just want to be successful, it wasn't exact like this, but it was something around the lines of you gotta learn how to sell. At every capacity, you need to sell. Even if you're in operations, even if you're in HR, you have to sell the vision or the goals that you have for your team to your team. You need to convince people to do things your way. You have to convince your superiors that, you know, why you deserve a raise. You're always selling. So that's a skill that everyone needs to learn. And yeah, going back to what you said, yeah, even as a manager, supervisor, whatever, always implementing things here and there.
Next question is, you went to England. I want to hear a little bit more about that. So you didn't speak English when you got there.
Very little.
And here you are today, selling and leading teams in English without a problem. So I want to hear a little bit about your first couple weeks in England, what that was like. The most proper of all Englishes.
So I was always fascinated and passionate about English in general. Always, when I was growing up as a teenager, I always tried to learn, and I took classes growing up. And then I thought, when I filled out my papers to serve, a mission, I said that, I told them that my English was, I think they have different levels, and I told them it was medium. Because I had been taking lessons my whole life. But I remember showing up, getting out of the plane and then going through customs, through border patrol in England. And this lady asked me something, and I was like, I think she just asked me, why are you here? Why are you here? And then I just froze. I didn't understand what she asked. And then this one girl that had flown with me from Brazil, she translated everything for me. I answered and I got through. So got there really not understanding anything. Then 3 weeks later, I was thrown into what we call the field, and never looked back from there. And it's funny because I also never really studied when I was there. We were supposed to have language study every day, but I never did it. I found out. I realized that the best way to learn was to get out and talk to people, and that's what I did all day long, and that was the best thing for me. And it really sped things up on, it determined the speed in which I learned English.
I don't think people give proper weight to how difficult it would be to learn English as a 19-year-old. That's a massive achievement, and the fact that you can now persuade people and lead people in a second language is unbelievable. So massive respect for you for that.
Yeah, some days are better than others.
All right, this question's coming. What people and which experiences from when you were born till, we could say till now, have shaped who you are as a person?
Um, Definitely my dad is the biggest contributor for my personality, for my values, for my dreams. Um, I often tell people that my dad's the most successful person I've ever met in my life. Definitely not the richest, not even close. But when he was 8 years old, he was working in mines. He was literally a slave when he was 8, and then never finished elementary school. Then left the place that he grew up, went to São Paulo in Brazil, which is in the south, um, and just built a very successful family and life for us. We always had everything that we needed, and it got to a point where he was in a really good position. So we had a great home. We traveled every year. He was able to send me here to the United States to go to school. All of that being some just cleaning swimming pools. So to me, the way that from the place that he left to where he got, the delta there, to me, makes him the most successful person I know, and never bragged about anything that he had ever accomplished. It was just, I just remembered there were probably for 10 years straight that he would leave at 6 in the morning, come back home at 11 p.m. because after working the entire day under the sun, he would go to school, and then he got a bachelor's degree and a postgraduate degree. All of that while being a father of two and working full time in his own business, which to me, I don't know how he did that, but somehow he did it. So he graduated with a bachelor's degree in, I don't know what to call it in English, but qualified him to be a school teacher. And then he went and got a postgraduate degree in biology. It just blows me away every time I think of that. So he left from the circumstances that he grew up in which he was born, set him up for failure, but he became this successful person who is an example for a lot of people that grew up around me. So to me, he's the biggest example I have there.
There's so many questions that I have around that, and we're gonna get to them. I want to ask one more question before we get there.
Okay.
What were the highs and what were the lows of your life?
Definitely the highest points of my life have been this year of 2023. I feel like my life has been balanced for the first time in my entire life. I feel like my relationship with my wife is at an all-time high. I feel like my relationship with God is also at an all-time high, which kind of determines the rest of all of the areas of my life. But just financially we're able to live a really good life, plus help a lot of people around us and serve more and help more people. So definitely this past year has been the highest point of our lives. We've also traveled to some pretty cool places and had a really good time. The lowest, growing up, I always had everything I've ever needed in terms of nurturing from my parents, but also we always had food on our table, but we weren't rich. So growing up around people that had a lot of money was interesting, and that would be my answer if you asked me this question 2 years ago. Just growing up in an area where I never had the phone I wanted, or the cell phone I wanted, or the toy that I wanted as a kid. But I think the lowest point of my life was 2 months prior to my dad passing away. He got really sick, and then sometimes we would go like 3-4 nights in a row without sleeping because we were taking care of him. So that was definitely, those 2 months prior to my dad passing away were definitely the hardest. Not because he was passing, because because of our faith, there's a lot of peace that comes from that. But those 2 months that we weren't sleeping, we just had to see him in so much suffering and so much pain, and there's nothing that we could do. All that we could do was there, talk to him and be a support. Sometimes he was in so much pain that to distract him, I'll be driving him around for like 3, 4, 5 hours during the, at night. Just that those 2 months leading up to his passing were definitely the most exhausting, physically, financially, and mentally of my entire life.
Thanks for sharing that. You were here in the U.S. from Brazil when you found out that he had passed away, and I won't make you go and relive that, but I've thought many times of your flight back by yourself, you having to, you're the oldest child, like you had to figure it out, and again, just a lot of respect for you and how you handled that, and how you took care of everyone else, and how you allowed yourself to process that. You said this year has been the best, which I love. And I've been thinking back on mine. I think this last year was also my best. And I've thought about people prescribe, like, do this, do this, do this, and you'll have this outcome. And what I've loved is it actually worked. Like, you just have this faith that it's gonna work, right? Like, you're gonna do this prescription and you're gonna get to the end and you're gonna have the happy marriage and the great relationship with God, and your finances are gonna be what they're like at an all-time high, and you're gonna be driving the car you want, living where you want. Can you go through and talk a little bit about what that formula is of what worked?
Formula. I don't know if I have a formula dialed in, but I can tell you what I found out that worked for myself. So when I was in college, I read this book called Ride of a Lifetime by Bob Iger, and that book made me reflect. He goes through like principles that he lived during his life that set him up for success. And I started to notice that all of the successful people that I knew, or not that I knew on a personal level, but just all the successful people, they had principles and values and lines that they wouldn't cross. So that day I decided to go on a journey to find out what my principles were. So about for a month, I read a bunch of articles, I read some books to help me find out what my principles were and things that were close to my heart. And I determined that the most important thing for me was always going to be faith in my relationship with God. Second, hard work and integrity. So that's like it's a triangle, which is the strongest structure there is. That's like a triangle, faith at the top, and then integrity and hard work at the bottom. And so it's just a combination of that over years and years, a lot of hard work. When I was in college, there were days that I would work. There was one time that I worked 36 hours straight without sleep, with very, very little sleep, and still full-time in school and working 3 jobs, was just grinding day after day, showing up every day, but also being honest in every single thing I did, plus never leaving my relationship with God aside. So a combination. There are definitely times in my life that one of the 3 was stronger than the others, but just like an interdependency of those 3 things have been the formula for me.
I love that. There's a quote that says, change the man and you'll change his world. I think sometimes people focus so much on, if I can just get this, then everything will be different, instead of leaning into, if I can become this and lean into these principles, then the world will shape to match who I am as a person.
Over the last few weeks, I've been thinking a lot about one experience that I had when I was in college. There's this self-sabotage that sometimes we look at the things that are happening in our lives and I speak for myself, like why am I getting these things? Do I deserve them? And there's this one experience that kind of helps me remember that, yeah, like you've worked hard for this. I was in college, again, working 3 jobs, just grinding, and then was taking an extra, like a course, an online course, an entrepreneurship course online. It was Friday, 11:30 p.m., and my wife comes out of the bedroom and says, "Hey, come to bed." And I was like, "No, I need to finish this." So most of our friends were probably, out or just having dinner or sleeping or watching a movie. It was a Friday night. I had kind of sacrificed working on my relationship with my wife at the time to put in the work to learn all of these skills that I needed because I was going to need them in the workplace. And then I just remembered and I asked her, can you take a picture of me? So I had the computer behind me, and then now sometimes I just go back and look at that picture, just again working 3 jobs, going to school full time, and taking that extra course at 11:30 p.m. at night just built a foundation for me to, I guess, reap that put me in a position now to reap a little bit because I planted for so long.
And the part I love about that is when there are seasons to reap, I think people think, oh, I just gotta grind, I can never reap. But actually reaping gives you more seeds to harvest the next time it's the season to sow.
Yeah.
And then the harvest is so much bigger the next time. This isn't gonna be the last time where you have, well, I know you, this isn't gonna be the last time you're gonna have your 80, 90 hour weeks, your 36 hours straight of work. Those are gonna continue to be a part, but the rewards are gonna be compounded on the work that you've done in the past because you have so much more knowledge and resources and connections and skills to invest that you didn't have the first time around.
Yeah, and I also kind of adding to what you said, I think it also adds some confidence to you because when you start reaping, then all of those things that I planted, they are actually the right thing. So when it's planting season, is that the right way to say it? When it's planting season again, you know where to go, right? When if you just plant, you just get addicted to the grind instead of the why behind everything. I think when you start reaping, it gives you the confidence. Okay, yeah, actually, but if I had done this differently, maybe it would have given me more results. It just gives you an opportunity to look back and also gain confidence in the things that you did, or just okay, I need to do things differently.
There's a Denzel Washington quote, and he says, make sure I get it right: ease or comfort is a greater hindrance to success than hardship. And I think when I see you, there are 3,000 people in my network who I like. They know I have a business. They know, like, 7 years ago, right? 3,000 people in that network, and they know I have a business. They know I'm trying to grow it. Any one of them could have taken this opportunity, but their life didn't suck bad enough. It was just okay. And I think that's the greatest hindrance to them not going after what they want. And I don't mean this in any negative sense. You're really smart. You're not the smartest guy I ever met. You're really capable. You're not the most capable person I've ever met. Like you're really great at communicating. There's probably somebody that I've met that has a slightly better skill than that. But your work ethic and your determination is so much stronger than anyone's I have ever met, that you came and you grabbed this opportunity and made way more money than 99.9% of the people in that network. It's the fight in the dog and not the dog in the fight that wins.
Yeah, when you're saying that, it also reminded me, and this is where I need to give credit to you. When I was recruited to work with you, I was in the process of also working, being recruited by a bank, or to go out and do door-to-door sales, right, at the time, which on the short term, I was going to make a lot more money there. But I felt like you saw in me and you're willing to give me opportunities that no one else did. And I think that's I don't know what else to say about that, but also you saw something in me that others didn't, and that made me loyal to you at the time, and I wanted to go work with you. And I could have made more money at the bank, and I could have made way more money selling at the time, but something draw me to you. Is that draw? Is that the right?
Drew.
Something drew me to you. So I also kind of just, so credit to you as well that for seeing the best in people and getting the best out of people.
We're just a couple entrepreneurs with chips on our shoulder that wanted to go prove to everyone else that we could have a different life than what we had.
Yeah, I was also watching a video the other day that talked about this effect that sometimes it's better to have something terrible happen to you than something mild. And that's because if you hate, for example, if you just have a job that you hated, but you get paid at the end of the month and you're never fired, you're just gonna keep working. A lot of people just keep working in that job for years and never move on to the next stage of their career. When if you just get fired, all of a sudden, that propels you to go and start your own thing. Something way worse sets you back further than if you just had something mild, but that propels you to do something greater. There's a name, like a beta something effect, but I think it's also kind of goes back to what you're saying. Like college was rough, and there are so many things that I'm not going to go into detail here that happened during that time, but it really set me back, and I had to make up for it somehow.
And you have.
Well, we're on the way.
10x and 10x again. All right, I want to pivot. Unless there's anything else you'd like to add on this.
No,
I know Roberta's gonna kill me for not mentioning her more. You have an unbelievable wife. I know she's really the engine behind all of your successes. But I want the audience to hear about what you've done from a sales side. To give a quick history, we grew this company to a couple million in revenue with one salesperson, and he was phenomenal. He was the lone wolf archetype. He'd get out there and he'd go and grind. It's a different skill set with a lot of overlapping skill sets that can go from an individual contributor to somebody that can build a scalable, repeatable, and teachable sales process that you could now step out and your team would go and crush by finding leads, turning those into demos, and then converting those demos into actual revenue producing clients. So the question is, if you were to go to a company that had a couple 100,000 in revenue, what would be your playbook? Well, what would I know I haven't prepared you for this, but the first 100 days, what do you do to set that company to go from a couple 100,000 to a couple million in revenue?
Wow. Even though you didn't prepare me for the question, I feel like I'm kind of going through that right now. I'm helping this friend of mine with his company, and he's in that stage where he's making a couple 100,000 a year, and then he wants to quit his job to be the CEO and take this company to the next level. So the first thing I did, and the first thing I'll do, is to go in and understand the product. There's no way I'm going to be able to convince someone to buy it if I'm not sold on it. So I spent hours and hours just listening, reading, looking at competitors, just really understanding what I was getting into. And then once I have that information, build a very simple go-to-market strategy and test that. Gain traction with that. Just experiment after experiment, and then go back to the lab. Okay, how can I make it better? And then do it over and over and over again. And I don't think there's an end to that. It's just, okay, we've learned we're not getting traction this. Now we're back at the lab. How can we make the messaging better? How can we make it even clearer? And how can we make sure that we're explaining the value that we're adding, even in a clearer way? Just doing that over and over again, making sure that just improving that messaging over and over again.
So to go through this process, you get into a company, they're doing a couple $100 million, or somebody that's listening is doing a couple $100,000 in revenue. And the first thing you learn is the product in the market. What is it? And get sold on the product. It actually has to be solving.
It has to be
a real
clear.
problem.
You have to be able to explain the solution, the problem that you're solving in 15 seconds, 30 seconds. If you can't do that, just go back to the lab and figure, you have to figure out what that looks like.
Love it. Once you do that, you create a playbook, and that playbook says who's the ideal customer profile, where do those people hang out physically and digitally, what's the messaging to get to them, what's the pricing, anything else in that playbook that I'm missing?
Yeah, there's the entire pitch.
So you script that out, you script out the emails, you script out the
different
phone calls.
scenarios. Yeah, just here's 10 different answers that people could give you, and then how to go from there. And you don't have to follow those to, word by word, but just so that you know how to come back from and overcome certain objections. But yeah, it's usually on the playbooks I build, I have the customer profile on the first pages, and that's a very uncomfortable exercise. I've noticed that a lot of people don't like doing that, but just spend a lot of time.
Why don't founders like defining their customer profile?
I think you have to use a creative side of your brain to develop that profile, which is not real, and you think you know what it is, and you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, I know what it is. But write it down, write a profile for your customer that's a page long. Just where do they hang out? How old are they? Where do they go to college? Put a picture, just find a random picture on Google of what that person looks like. Just building a profile that it's an entire page, so that you feel like you know who your customer is in detail. And I don't know exactly why, but a lot of people want to skip that phase. I don't want to do that.
I can tell you why I've hated doing that from my side, and you've helped me be part of. You've helped force this on me. We have 3 different customer profiles for different products that we sell, and the reason I hated it is because you feel like, man, I just limited myself to all these other people, and I don't know a lot of those people. Like that specific person, I may only know 10 of them in my network, and that's all I can sell to. And so they try and sell to everyone, say all of these people are customers. I have the fix all for everyone, when it's really built for one person. And then if you crush it and deliver the perfect product for one person,
yeah, you can go from there.
Then even though Nike is targeted specifically to 18 to 25-year-old male athletes, you still have my 70-year-old father-in-law who's going to go buy them because he wants that product. But they didn't try and be all things for all people.
Correct.
So after you have this playbook, the next step is you go after quantity. And that's taking the playbook, which may be multiple playbooks with ideal customer profiles and different pricing and different strategies and different scripts. And you go after as many different markets as possible. Is it as many as possible, or you try and limit it to 2 or 3? Is there a sweet spot in there?
You're just one person, right? Or 2 people. So there's so much that you can do. So focus on the ones that you feel like are the best ones, but pivot fail fast. Like just try them, and then if you're not getting traction, go to the next one fast. But yeah, limit yourself to at least, few.
Cool. And it might not be abandoning the entire playbook. It might be adjusting the pricing. It might be adjusting the pitch, but you're going to feel that. And this, so many times, I think investors and founders think, I can outsource this, I can find something. This is a founder-led activity. It has to be done by the founder of the company or the head of growth that's going into a new vertical. This can't be pushed off to a hired consultant. Please do not push off.
It has to be someone who has skin in the game.
Yes. Because they're the only ones that's this is a painful process, and they're gonna do what's necessary to make it happen.
Yeah.
So after you've done quantity.
Otherwise, they're just gonna put on ChatGPT and create it for you.
Yes, yeah. So after you've gone through doing the quantity, which is, the analogy is from the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, which he says, fire bullets. He's comparing it to these 2 warships, and if you have one warship that's attacking the other one, and you start off firing cannonballs, you're gonna miss more times than you're gonna hit. And the goal is to sink the other ship. And so instead of firing cannonballs, get out the rifles and start firing a lot of bullets. And then you dial it in and fire another bullet, dial it in and fire another bullet. And then you have your cannonballs left over to go and fire cannonballs. If you do it the opposite way, which we've seen people do, which is we're going to create a booth at this event, we're going to invest $20,000 on this initiative, we're going to invest $50,000 to build this product because we know people want it, then they fire their cannonball, and most likely you're going to miss on your first shot, your fifth shot, your 10th shot. And when you do, then you run out of cash, and then that's when the business fails. And then people chalk it up to, oh, it was bad luck, or I wasn't lucky. But it was doomed to fail from the beginning. It's because they didn't go through this process of being a scientist. And in that process, I think you view failures as successes. Like we found out the answer that this is not the right market. It is not a failure. That's one step closer to finding the right market. So then after you fire the bullets, you fire the cannonballs, and then once you're dialed, how long until you stop firing cannonballs?
Oh, you don't ever stop.
You don't ever stop?
No. I think you just, it's constant improvement. At least once a month or once every quarter, I go in and review the playbook and get together with my team. Hey guys, bring suggestions to the table. We need to make this better. It's just a constant improvement. And then if we made the wrong adjustment, we go back to the last version and we make a different version from that. But just constantly improving until, I guess, you stop firing cannonballs when you've conquered the whole market. When you have the whole, your market share is 100%. And I don't think we or significant enough for you to start the process all over again.
I love that you bring that point up, because I think so many people fire one cannonball and they have a big win. And we actually made this mistake when we got Wells Fargo as a customer. We got Wells Fargo and Bank of America, and those are the two largest banks in the world. And we thought, man, we've made it. Now what's the next market we're going to go to? And we started kind of haphazardly firing these other cannonballs. We didn't have the processes dialed in with Wells Fargo. We for sure didn't with Bank of America, so we ended up losing Bank of America. And Wells Fargo, we were never able to become profitable on until the very end. And I think the mistake there is, well, yeah, you have Wells Fargo and you have Bank of America, but you don't have John Deere, you don't have Caterpillar, you don't have all of these other customers.
6,000 banks.
Yes, tons and tons and tons. And so it's way easier to do more of what you're already doing and get it a little bit better than it is, like you're saying, every single day, than it is to go and start that process of building another playbook, firing bullets, firing cannonballs. That process is so much easier, but people go after that because this unknown creates this excitement.
Yeah, it's a little boring because you're just rinsing and repeat, right? And then making small changes along the way. But you've paid all that tuition. Why are you quitting halfway through? Just finish the work until you feel like you have a pretty good market share.
I'm gonna read the quote that we were talking about last week, and this has been standing out to me, and you just nailed it exactly what it is. It's from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. And the part is specifically how to stay focused when you get bored working towards your goals. And that's exactly the point, right? To fire the bullets, then the cannonballs. And then if you do the same process every day, it's really, really boring, but you're mining. That's where the money is to be made. That's where like the lion's share is to be made, and it's way less work than it was before. It's when you can have a great relationship with your wife and with God, be driving the car you want. Here's what he says. At some point, it comes down to who can handle the boredom of training every day, doing the same lifts over and over. The greatest threat to success is not failure, but boredom. Men desire novelty to such an extent that those who are doing well wish for a change as much as those who are doing badly. And it's so easy to get distracted, to go into the next thing instead of mining.
Yeah, at one point you need to go to the next thing, but it's not. There's seasons, and there's harvesting season.
And it's not at 50,000 in revenue. It's not at 100,000. You don't have 100% market share when you're at 100,000 in revenue.
Yeah, you have to understand
how 7 figures. And
Yeah.
then
If your market allows 7 figures, right?
I don't know a market that doesn't allow
Right,
seven
yeah.
figures. You have to be so nichey to have a market that doesn't allow for seven
But
figures.
if you have a market that the potential is billions, you don't stop at 7 figures, right?
Yeah.
So just understand the potential of the market, then you can measure when to go to the next thing.
Awesome. Any last words on what you want to share from your life, or what you want to share on what you do to get a business from a couple $100 million or a couple $100,000 to $1 million in revenue?
No, I think we already talked about a lot of things. I don't want to come across as an expert because I'm not. This is the first time I was able to get in 5-10. This was the first time that I was able to scale a sales operation and be successful at it. But I think what I've learned in the process is just you as a leader, as whether you are the owner of the company or a sales leader, you can be comfortable with just managing everything. Just step in, make a few calls every day. Even though you don't have to do the demos, do them. You have an account executive that's doing demos for you. That's great. Every now, at least a couple times a week, go and join one. Just don't lose touch with the front line, because that's when you start losing credit, respect. Also, you start making the wrong changes. So I guess what I've learned is stay involved, stay present, and stay connected with the front line. And the best way to do that is grinding. They need to feel like they're shoulder to shoulder with you instead of you just pushing them. And I know it's very cheesy and cliche to say that, but the application is much harder than the theory. But you gotta be involved, present. They need to feel like you're one of them as a leader.
It's not a hard equation. It's easy to understand but hard to execute.
Yep.
Thanks, Carlos.
Thank you.
Hello, Grow.
Tune in for the next episode next week, every Thursday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time.